So, all right, Elsa, now we are going to switch a bit of this. So, to do a little bit of rapid fire round. So, I'll ask you some quick questions. And you have to answer the first thing that comes to your mind. So,
I
are
think
you ready?
so. We'll see.
Hello and namaskar everyone. Welcome to the another episode of Science Heroes, a series that brings you stories from amazing heroes from different branches of STEAM. And today in this episode, we have another special guest from the molecular plant pathology field. Our guest is Alyssa Martino, who recently completed her Ph.D. from the University of Sydney, and her research is about the Myrtle rust disease. So, without further delay, let's welcome her to this channel and listen to her inspiring story.
Please welcome Alyssa Martino. Alyssa, thank you
Thank
for
you
being
so
here
much for
today.
having me, Dibya. It's great to chat to you and meet you today.
Yeah. So to begin this episode, can you please tell us a bit about your academic background and what led you to pursue a career in molecular plant pathology, and how did your interest in plants develop over time?
It's a bit of a long story, so I hope we have time. So
Yeah, you have a lot of
yeah,
time.
wonderful.
Please go ahead.
So a bit of a different background for me, I guess. When I was in high school, I made the decision to leave after year 10, so I didn't complete my sort of formal high school. And I spent quite a bit of time working a few different jobs. So I was working for a building company, and I guess at that time I sort of realized after quite a few years that I wanted to pursue something at university. And coming from an Italian background, like food was always a really big part of my life. So, always having discussions around the dinner table and things like that. But I never really understood where that food came from. So I decided to start at university, taking sort of a bit of a bridging course in, and I started off doing animal science and crop science at Myrtle University over in Western Australia. That gave me a bit of an introduction into genetics, which I really loved that aspect of. So I eventually decided to move to the University of Western Australia, and there I completed my undergraduate degree in agricultural science and genetics. So I had a double major there. At that time, my partner had moved to Sydney, so we were doing long distance for a while, and I was assessing different pathways to do honours over in Sydney. And that's when I met Mary Byrne at the University of Sydney. So I worked on a honours project. It wasn't focused on plant pathology at the time, but it was more looking at the molecular basis of leaf shape development in model plants. So it gave me a really solid foundation in molecular science that I then was able to transfer into the plant pathology side in my PhD. I met my supervisor, Perry Tobias, when I was completing my honours, and she told me about this amazing project she had, which was focusing on myrtle rust, which is a disease that affects a lot of Australian native trees, and looking to find ways of resistance to the pathogen. So it was a really strange pathway into it, but it allowed me to just really focus in on the conservation aspect of molecular plant pathology, and that's probably what really drives me now is the conservation side of what I get to do as well. So like I said, it's a long
Wow,
story.
yeah, really interesting story and like a great journey. Yeah, long
Yeah,
journey.
long journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially from leaving high school and making that decision at such a young age. it took a while to come back around into university, but it's been a journey I'm very proud of as well.
So, as that kid in high school, did you have any like inspiration to study science? Like anything you want to share with our audience?
I don't know if I did. I think it was something that was there from a young age. I grew up, watching different films that had, scientists in them, and I think I maybe wanted to be an archaeologist or a paleontologist growing up, and I loved always tinkering around with things. But at high school, I really didn't know. I think I struggled to find my place a little bit at high school and didn't quite fit in, and it was a bit of a difficult time. So I think it was the best decision for me at that point in my life, and I had no idea where I'd end up. So I feel very privileged to be in the position I am now. When I think back to that young Alyssa in high school.
Okay, interesting. So now let's talk about your PhD journey. So what was the focus of your research during your PhD at the University of Sydney? And also, could you share some of your exciting findings you made along the way? So yeah, this answer will be also long, I think, so I give you the floor.
Well, on the exciting findings, I think that's the dream for anyone completing a PhD, is to get some amazing findings. And so I'll take a step back and answer the first question. So I sort of alluded to it already, but the project was focusing on myrtle rust, which is a disease that's very prevalent in Australia, especially on the east coast of Australia, and affects the Australian native trees like the eucalyptus and the paper bark. And we don't understand how the trees are responding to that. So we have been focusing on developing a model system in the broadleaf paperbark, and it's a common tree over in the east coast, and trying to work towards developing a model where we can just have one tree species that we work on to understand the plant pathogen interaction and how the trees are responding to that infection, and whether or not we can transfer those findings to other species. So during my PhD, I did have some really interesting findings. I can't say too much about it yet because we still need to publish it, but it's we were able to show that we can hopefully use this model, and I think that there's a few different research groups that we've been collaborating with that we have similar results. So we're really hoping that we can bring all of that together as well. And I guess on that, I would just say that it's really important to collaborate during the PhD with other research groups and not work in isolation if you can. So yeah, more to come on that front, but there have been some exciting results as well.
So yeah, that's interesting. And like after you publish that, we will put the link of your like publication maybe on the description section.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. For now, we just understand that you are working on myrtle rust and some kind of interaction between those plants and the rust.
And that we do see plants that are resistant to the pathogen, and we've made some interesting findings on what that might be as well.
Yeah, so all the best for your publication. So yeah, the journey of PhD, it feels like never-ending roller coaster of deadlines and experiments. So how did you manage the work-life balance during your studies, and what strategies or habits did you adopt to ensure you stayed healthy and motivated?
I don't know if I had healthy habits during the PhD. It's a really hard thing to do, and I don't advocate sometimes for the way I did things, you know, because I would work weekends like most PhD students do. It's an everyday thing. But to keep motivated, I really found it helpful to engage with the public. I was really fortunate during the PhD. I was awarded a grant to work on a citizen science project, which was monitoring myrtle rust across Australia. And I think what was really motivating throughout that was hearing from the public that they were concerned about the problem that I was working on, you know, for my PhD. And I think as PhD students, we can get really bogged down by our projects, and it can feel very isolating at times as well. So being able to actually talk to people about it, and know that people actually cared about, you know, this big document that I was working on that I thought nobody would ever see, it really helped to keep that motivation going, and just, you know, having support of peers as well. I had some great friends at the University of Sydney, and even outside of that, I have a really great support network in friends and family, and it really helps a lot. And just making sure that if, you know, at any point you do feel isolated, just reaching out to anyone for some help as well, and having those discussions, whether it's, you know, just a coffee together or whatever it is, it all really helps.
Those emotional supports also play really great part in our this journey.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very important. So what are the things you normally do to release stress and recharge when you really feel overwhelmed or burnt out?
I think a great thing for me has been exercise. You know, just getting out in nature sometimes, especially with my project. It's a really great reminder of why I was doing what I was doing. If I went for a walk, really lucky being in Sydney, we're close to somewhere like the Blue Mountains, and you see these beautiful big eucalyptus forests, and it's a really great reminder of, you know, what I'm trying to protect through doing my studies, and just, you know, whatever exercise as well is always great for a bit of mental health. So I would say that was a big part of how I would release stress throughout the PhD, for sure.
True. Being in the nature and exercise, they really help. Really. I have also been doing that a lot.
That's great. Canberra's great for that. You've got nature all around you as well.
Yeah, so much of nature around. The lake is so beautiful.
You're very lucky there.
I go there whenever I feel stressed.
And it's not too busy in Canberra. You can have those moments of quiet as well.
Yeah. So also, you have an inspiring academic journey so far. So what advice would you give to young scientists or students who are just beginning their research journey, especially those interested in plant science?
If I draw on my own pathway, I think just to be kind to yourself and give yourself time to figure out what you want and what you're passionate about as well. It took me a long time to figure that out, and I went down a lot of different pathways to get to where I am now. And I think just being open to different possibilities throughout that whole journey, say yes to different opportunities, don't be afraid to reach out to people. I've had some really great, you know, volunteer experiences throughout my my undergraduate and PhD as well, and a lot of those were just from sending an email to a professor that seemed really scary at the time, but then you get a reply and realize that they're really there to help and support students, especially if you're really keen to get some experience in a certain area. So just not to be afraid of doing those things, because most people want to help and are supportive throughout the journey as well.
Right. Yeah, and if you like are trying to find some scholarship, like reaching out to people and writing emails, because like you don't lose anything by just trying. So
No,
yeah, go ahead
exactly
and
right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The worst thing that happens is somebody doesn't reply, and then you send
yeah,
another email. And we've all been there. It kind of hurts. I'm not lying.
yeah,
It does
yeah.
hurt not
True.
to get a
I have
reply.
been there too.
But then you move on and you keep going, and you find someone that that is willing to help and support.
Yeah,
So
yeah, right. I hope this answer helps enthusiasts from around the
I
world, I
hope so.
think. So yeah.
Have you experienced that yourself, like the
So
rejection emails or?
why not? A lot of them. Like before starting my PhD, I had a lot of that rejections, of course, and then like ended up getting some acceptance, and from those I selected like A and
Yeah,
E.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Rejection is part of the process, so we should not
No,
stop trying.
exactly. It's wonderful advice. I
Yeah,
couldn't have put it better myself. We should never stop trying.
yeah, true. But but like when we are trying and in that phase,
Yeah,
it's going to be
definitely.
great.
Yeah, we can't lie. We can't lie to your viewers and say it's easy.
Currently, you are working on Myrtle rust disease. So, how significant is that disease to Australia? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's an interesting one, because it's predominantly an environmental pathogen, so it's not impacting any food crops. It's not like wheat rust that is affecting wheat crops, and so we tend to hear more about those diseases that are affecting the foods or the source of the foods that we need. But in terms of the impact, it's been really substantial across Australia. So we've seen the extinction of several plant species in the wild because of this disease. And there's another maybe 16 that are predicted to go extinct over the next several years because of this as well. And it might,
that's a scary.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it really is. Like when we think about the impact of everything else as well in Australia, we have droughts and fires and all of these other factors that are already contributing to the loss of a lot of our native.
biodiversity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it is really scary. So when it first came into Australia in 2010, it was into New South Wales, and since then it's spread all across Australia aside from South Australia. So it's really widespread, and it's the flow-on effects that we're concerned about. So some of these species are really important in terms of just stability of the landscapes and food for animals, shelter for animals as well, and a huge cultural significance of a lot of these Australian native species as well. So it's really important that we do what we can to manage the disease, but unfortunately it doesn't receive the attention I think it deserves when we think about some of the other issues that receive a lot of funding as well in Australia. There's definitely a lack of funding for this type of research, unfortunately.
true. I hope your research add a brick to solving that
Yeah,
problem.
we can only hope. It might be just a
Yeah,
little brick, but I'll be happy
yeah.
to lay that
Anyway,
down as well.
so all right, Elsa. Now we are going to switch a bit of this. So to do a little bit of rapid fire round. So I'll ask you some
Oh
quick questions,
no.
and you have to answer the first thing that comes to your mind. So
I
are you
think
ready?
so. We'll see.
So what is your favorite plant disease to study?
That's a really hard one. Myrtle rust, of course.
Okay. So just one word to describe your PhD journey.
Tiring.
So are you a morning person or a night owl?
Is neither an acceptable question. No, I think I would say night owl more than morning person. Yeah.
Okay. Your go-to stress relief activity.
Exercise, definitely.
Okay. Okay. If you weren't a scientist, what would you be?
Oh, um, maybe, maybe a writer. I love novels, so maybe a writer
Wow.
in another life.
What, you write
I
novels?
mean, I love reading novels, and I like
Oh,
stories, so
okay.
I'm gonna say a novelist. Maybe later in
Wow.
life, we'll see.
Okay.
When I'm retired, I'll write books.
Okay, so what's your favorite food to celebrate a success?
I love pasta carbonara. That's my favorite meal. That's my go-to.
One piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Just to be patient. I think that would be my advice, to be patient and trust the process.
So yeah, here we end our rapid fire round. Let's talk about your long-term career goal in this field. How do you envision the future of plant science?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for myrtle rust, I'm probably concerned a little bit. I think just because of seeing the impact it's had in Australia, and the lack of funding for it now overall. But I can understand it as well. There's so many issues that we need to think about. There's so many different plant diseases out there, and this is just one of them. We turn on the news and there's so much happening in the world at the moment. So trying to get the public and the governments to care about our research is really challenging, and I'm sure there's other people that feel the same as well. There's just so much noise out there. So I think one of the best things we can do is really learn, and even just in plant sciences more broadly, is learn how to engage the public and translate our science so it's really easy to understand for the public as well, and for them to understand, what these problems are that we're facing, and that it's not all negative as well. There's so many amazing researchers working in this space to try and overcome these problems, and with funding for it, we can really do some amazing work to overcome a lot of these challenges and to manage them as well. But there's a long way to go, I think.
True.
Yeah. But I think overall, there's a lot of information on social media, but it's also a really good opportunity to use it as a platform to get some science out there for the general public as well, and it's become a lot more accessible for people. So I think what you're doing with this podcast is amazing as well, because it connects people working in plant sciences together as well. So I hope you keep continuing with the podcast. It's a fantastic idea to be doing
Yeah,
this.
I have a plan, but yeah, let's see how the research goes and the time.
Yeah, well, this can be your stress relief from the PhD. So to answer your own
Okay.
question.
Okay, yeah, that's how I started to release the stress. So
Yeah.
maybe I should continue it.
Yeah, so the more stressful your PhD becomes, the more podcast episodes you can film. So stress can be a
Right.
good motivator.
You're right. True. So I think we are already near to the end of this conversation. So is there any advice or final thought you would like to add to this video? And also, do you have any message for those who are still uncertain about pursuing a career in plant science? And you can also share about your social media if you are interested here in this part of the video.
Lovely. So your first part of that question was just any advice to anyone?
Yeah. Who would like to start their career and they are like a bit confused.
Yeah. it is confusing. I mean, I go back to what I said at the start of this, when you asked about my journey, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And at the time, I thought that was a really bad thing. I thought that I would never, have anything, any sort of purpose for myself, and I felt very lost. And it's a really challenging feeling, but it's completely okay, would be my advice. Like, it's okay to not know what you want to do. And so if somebody is thinking of pursuing it, I think the best place to start is even talking to people like ourselves. Myself and yourself, Dibya, seem to be very open to talking to people, and giving advice when we can as well. So it might seem a little bit scary to reach out to the professor to ask for advice, but there's students like us out there that are happy to give advice where we can, and put yourselves out there a little bit, and it becomes easier along the way. Every university is different with its requirements for entry as well. So I think just as a start, really understanding, maybe what university that they would like to go to, and understanding what those processes are there as well. And then I guess on my social media front, I have been working on a website and newsletter. So I think about maybe June last year, I had this crazy idea. 6 months out of submitting my PhD, I decided it would be a great idea to start a newsletter in plant pathology. So, just to add something else.
That's really interesting. I have read those.
Yeah, thank you. So I had this crazy idea to start the.
It's not crazy, Alyssa.
It was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, I have the time for it now, which has been great. But 6 months before submitting, I don't know what I was thinking. It's been really fun. So you've read the newsletter, Dibya?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have. Please keep continuing it. Continue it,
Yeah.
please.
So I called it Robigalia, which is named after the ancient Roman festival, which was meant to protect their crops against disease. So back in ancient Roman days, a dog would be sacrificed on this day, and in the hope that the crops would be saved from any diseases. So it has a little bit of a little bit of a dark history. There are no dogs sacrificed in the cause of my newsletter, thankfully. We have scientists now that work on that instead, not a being to help with that. But the idea for the newsletter really started because I realized that in science generally, and especially plant pathology, there wasn't really a space for people to come together, especially for students in plant pathology to come together and have a place where they can find out about the new papers that are released, new jobs and scholarship opportunities for PhD and masters as well. So I wanted to create a platform that students could use to get all of those resources. And as it's progressed, I started getting a lot of messages from students in plant pathology that were looking for advice and for help along the way as well. So I have, as of the end of last year, incorporated a Student of the Week section into the newsletter. And what I really wanted to achieve with this was to help research students, whether it's honours or masters or PhD, to provide a platform for them to be able to promote their research. It's something that is really hard for a lot of us, is to put ourselves out there and talk about our own research. So I wanted to create a platform for that. And so now every week when the newsletter goes out, we have a different research student of the week and their research is featured. So really to promote the amazing research that is being done all around the world from different plant pathology students, rather than just hearing from a lab group as a whole. So I imagine we can provide a link for that after for everyone else as well.
Yeah, in the description.
Yeah. So there's that, and then on social media as well. I'm pretty active on Instagram. My handle is Myrtle Martino. So you can find me on there.
Okay, I'll follow you and then also like link it below.
Yeah. So a little bit of a play on words with that one. But yeah, if anyone is interested in signing up for the newsletter, it's a really great place to bring students of plant pathology together, and learn about what other students are working on and be featured as well. If you are a student in plant pathology, I would love to hear your story and feature that in the newsletter as well.
Yeah, I'll keep the link of your newsletter, your Instagram,
Thank
your
you.
LinkedIn, Google Scholar, whatever. Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I'm always happy.
Whatever you have.
Yeah, I'm always happy to have a chat as well. I love meeting other students that are
Okay,
working in the space. So yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today and like providing us this time to be here in spite of your busy schedule.
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and the chance to get to meet you as well.
And to all our viewers, thank you all for watching today's episode of Science Heroes. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so that you do not miss any amazing interviews in the future with our incredible scientists. Until next time, stay curious and remember, science heroes are everywhere around you. Thank you. Namaskar.